Once again, welcome to my channel where I code, solve beginner to intermediate ROS problems. So I would always say, one of the best ways to be a good programmer is to solve problems. It exposes you to functions or methods you never knew existed, or give you a real world experience of how it works and when to apply it, how to apply it, and a lot of other things. So today we'll be working on a problem called CSV Column Extractor. So you need to have a CSV file at the root of your code folder, as we do here, sample.csv. So this is the CSV file over here. So what this program does is it takes two arguments. One is going to be the file path, and the second one is going to be the column number. So if we say column number 1, what we expect the program to do is to print name: Alice, Benjamin, Chioma, David, Esther, Fatima, Grace, and Henry, each on its own line. So if we impute column number 4, so you want to see all of the favorite languages. So that is what we are going to be doing together. And let's see how far we can go. So first of all, because we are not just running the program, but we are running the program with some arguments. We are starting with some arguments. So let me do that for maybe let's say hello. So this, to run the program, we just do cargo run. Now we have hello as the output. So this program was just ran, nothing was passed to it. But if we want the program to run with some arguments, so we can say file path 10. Now this program started with these two arguments, file path and 10. Right now we are not collecting this argument to the program. That's what we will do first of all. Okay? It's also like saying we are starting this program with some default inputs. So for us to get the inputs, we need to store them somewhere. And these inputs are going to be stored as strings. So let's create a variable called args. And the type here will be a vector, since this is going to be a collection, a vector of string. Now where are we getting this from? We're getting it from the environment of our program. And to use the environment, we do use the standard library and the environment module. Okay, module is a collection of multiple functions that are related. So from the environment you have other functions, as you can see here, but we would stop the call here, so we do it here. So we say env from the environment. We want to use the args. So this function returns the arguments that this program was started with. Now when the function returns this, what should we do? We want to take them and put them inside of here. That's why we say collect. The name actually says what it does. Let me put this here and get back to it. Oh, it's not a distraction. Okay. So now we have our arguments into a variable. So let's try to see what goes there, or if it works. So let's do the same thing, 5 part 1 or 10. So as you can see, we now have our arguments saved. 5 parts here, 10 is here. So this is index 1, this is index 2, this is index 0. This is always going to be here. It's the root of the program, like the program's name, the crate name. It's necessary for some internal things to be done properly. So we now have our arguments passed correctly and stored inside of this variable. Now we need to add to it in a proper way, which is to have a function that will take these arguments, put them somewhere. If there's an error, it tells us there's an error. So let's have a struct. Okay, we'll keep this first. The struct is to help us structure the collection. So we call it config, just like our program's configuration. It changes whenever you're starting the program. So the first field in this data type is going to be the 5 parts. It's going to be the 5 parts. So this is going to be string, and the next one is going to be the column number, and this is also it's going to be use size. So this is either going to be a 32-bit or 64-bit, depending on the environment. So now that we have a way to collect related fields, let's create a function that will work with this. That's why we have config, impl, implementation for config. So all of the functions we want to work with this will go in here. Okay, so let's create a function and call it build. Just the same way, if we want to use some of the inbuilt data type, let's say name equal to string. So this is similar to what we are trying to do. Okay, string. There are others. Okay, so from, new, string, and a whole lot, string clear. So this is just what we're trying to do, but we're calling ours build because this could fail or not. So what does build require? It needs a collection of string, which in our case is a vector, but we don't want to tie it to a vector. We want it to be modular. We want it to be open to other collections. So we call the argument args. Is going to be a reference to a collection of string. So whichever collection we are passing here is going to work. So the next thing is, what is this function going to return? Is it going to return something? Of course, it's going to return this after manipulating the data that we receive. It's going to return this, or if there's an error, it should return an error. To enable us to do that, we use the result type. The result type helps us to handle where something is successful. We wrap it inside OK. If it's an error, we wrap it inside ERR. So result is the type that represents the success or failure. Okay, so if we succeed, what should we get back? We're getting back a config type. If it's an error, we should say the error, and this error can be set up at compile time. So because of that, we have to use a static string. Okay, not a reference to any string. This will be built into the program and does not expire. It's going to last as long as the program is running. So first of all, let's look at the problems we can encounter first. Now, in a case where the user does not enter the arguments that starts the program, like 5 parts and column number, we need to check that. And how do we check that? We look at the length of the input. So if everything is entered, we are expecting 3 inputs. One is internally added, which is index 0, like we saw before, and the other 2 are added by us. So let's look at the length of the entries. So we say if args dot length is less than 3, if the length of arguments is less than 3, what should we do? We want to stop the program and return an error. So like we said before, to get the error passed, we wrap it inside here, so the program knows this is an error. And what should the error say? No or incomplete arguments pass. So this is our error. If we do not get an error, then the program continues top to bottom as usual. Now if we do not get an error, let's try to store the values that are passed into the argument. So let 5 parts be equal to a 5 part is at index 1 of the arguments, not 0, remember, index 1, and our 5 part is a string. So because we cannot just pass it here, we need it to own its string. So when it's going to be returned, it won't be dropped. Okay, if we don't own it, we're going to have an error later. So let's continue. So when we get the error, it's going to be clear. So the second thing we want to do is to collect the column number. Okay, so to collect the column number, we need to store it somewhere. To let column number equal to ask at index what? Index 2. So there is a problem here. Our column number can be an alphabet. So instead of the user to pass a number, if the user passes an alphabet, let's say instead of a number, they pass A. So this is not going to work for our program, because our program expects a number. Alright, so let's try to handle this problem and tell the user, oh, you're not supposed to do this. Okay, another thing, sometimes these edge cases come after you're done with the program, when you're testing it like a real user. So another problem could be, what if the user passes 0 as the column number? Because 0 is internally the first index, it doesn't make sense to the user. Every user would pass 1 as their argument for the column 1, 2, 3, or 4. Okay, but if someone passes 0, maybe they're just trying to test something, what should happen? It should return an error. So let's try to handle that. First of all, let's try to check if the value that is passed can be converted to an integer. So we're going to be using the match. Okay, so let's column number equal match. What are we matching? We're trying to see what the result of this will be. We want to pass this into a use size, and if it's going to work, let's say yes, it's going to work. So this returns an option, so it can be an error, or it can be successful. So as you can see, it returns a result. It returns a result. It can be okay or an error. As you can see here, missing okay, error. So if we have an okay, that means we were able to pass the value to a number. So that's if they enter a number. So we wrap the value that is gotten from here inside our okay. Let's call it n, since that's a number. And what should we do after getting the value? Let's check the value, if it is 0 or not. So we check if n is equal to 0. What should we do? We return an error again. So these errors will not just show all at once, depends on what is wrong. So if it's an error, we say column value can not be 0 or less than 1. So this makes sense if this is pass, if a 0 or negative number is pass. Or we can say if it's less than 1. Okay, if it's less than 1, 0 is less than 1, negative is less than 1, so cannot be 0 or less than 1. But if they pass 1 is okay. What should we return? We should return back the value that we found to column number. So right now column number is nothing because we have not ended return something here. We're just checking. Okay, so if it's a number, what should we do now? If a user passes 1 here, we want to make sure what they pass is what they get. So we're going to be reducing the number by 1. So if a user passes 2, internally it's 3, but we're going to reduce it to 2. I hope you understand what I'm saying. This is how the indexing works. So if a user passes 1, they want 1. If they pass 2, they want 2. So we are trying to make sure what they pass is what they get. So now we have been able to handle if this is the case. So what if this could not be passed? So that's where we have the error hand. So if that cannot be passed, we don't want to store any value, we just want to handle it. That's why we have this here. So what should happen? We just return an error as usual. So the error still, remember all of our errors should be this. That's why we have them here. So if that is passed, what should be our error? Because the user did not pass the number, we say column value should be an integer. So this actually says something clear enough. Okay, says something clear enough. So yeah, we can move on to the next thing, which is now we have 5 pattern. If you look at column number, and now it's use size. This is what we want. So now that we have the variables, let's put them together, wrap them together inside this type, and so we have this settled. So we use the OK, which is what we're supposed to do, and put our config inside. Then what we have is 5 pattern column number. So because the names here match the fields, I don't have to do this and then put the field. Okay, so sometimes this makes sense, but we have an error here, cannot move out of type string. A non-copy slice cannot move out of here. So because this is a string, not an integer, it cannot be internally copied. So we need to copy it ourselves by using the clone. So the clone works here because this is a very small value. It's just a 5 parts. It's not a a string of data, like a huge text. Okay, it's just a 5 parts. So that will not be an issue. We're just duplicating it. So this will work. Now let's come back to our main and call the function properly. So let's config be equal to a function is gotten from our type, just like we do string, then new. So we are going to do config. Since this is implemented inside the type, then we say build. Okay, so what does this expect? It expects a reference to a collection, and this is our collection. So we just add a reference here, so it's not moved but borrowed. And this has two possibilities, either an error or a success. So we would want to unwrap this, but we just don't unwrap it, we handle the error as well. So we use unwrap or else. So to handle the error, we set up a closure here and then print the error. We're using ePrint because this prints the standard error instead of the standard output like the regular print. Okay, and also adds a new line. So what should this be? Let's add error here and then put the ERR, which is the error value. But because this unwrap or else expects to unwrap something, if it doesn't unwrap it, maybe because it's an error, it expects you to give it an alternative value, but this is not returning anything. So we use another module from the standard library inside of the process module. So what that does is we can the expect config found the unit type, nothing. So we call process and then exit. The exit code is one to say this program exited with an error. So this is going to be a clean exit. Now process does not return anything but says it returns. So that's why it works. It can work for any type. Okay, it doesn't return anything. It's called the never type. If you look at the description, I'm using the Z ID, so you can use it as well. It's fast and it's also easy to use. This should not be here. So now that we have config set up, let's see if we can take in values and also errors. Okay, so I want to get config.5path and also config.column number. Okay, so let's pass some arguments and see what happens. 5 paths and then 0. Error, column value cannot be 0 less than 1. Okay, we can't even pass something with less than, because let's try. Okay, yep, column value should be an integer. So this, okay, let's pass something. You can see 5 paths 0. We pass 1, but this is 0. So 0 will internally internally be the first argument, like the first index, but to the user it's going to be 1. That's why we had this setup. Okay, so now we have the arguments collected properly. Let's quickly go to the next phase. What should we do next? Let's try to access our file path, because that's takes a CSV file path. That's what the description says. To do that, we set up another function. Let's call it read file. The name should be descriptive enough to tell what the function does. So when you call it, it's like saying do this. So what does this expect? It expects a file path, and that's just all. So the file paths, we have a file path inside of config. So let's say it expects a config. So the type is config, and it's a reference to the type. We're not moving it. And what does this return? It could be an error, or it could be successful. So because of the possibilities, we should return whatever we get inside the result type. So if we get what we need, it should be a string. So we want to read the file. And if we get an error, we should handle that as well. But now the error is not going to be known at compile time, because we don't know if a file will be passed. We don't know if the correct file path will be passed. We don't know if the file is empty. We don't know if the file can be read, and a whole other possibilities. So we use the error will be wrapped in a box. So this is not on the stack like some values, but on the heap. So because this is going to be known at runtime, so it will be on the heap. So if you look at the description for box, it says a pointer type that uniquely owns a heap allocation of type T. So the type here is an error, but it's going to have the dynamic traits. So to use this error, it will also be added here. So error, if you go up, you can see error module. This is the trait error. Okay, so this, you can read more on this, so you understand it and when to use it, how to use it. So what we now have to do is to check if we can get an error or not. So let's try to store our file content inside of a variable called content. And where are we getting our file? We're getting it from the file system, and we cannot just use it straight up. We need to import it. So sometimes I type this out so it's clear, especially because I'm making a video. So we say fs, which is the file system module. So now we can use it here. Say fs. What does that say? We are looking for something we can use, so we want to use read to string. There are other functions here, but we need this. So this requires a path. So our path is going to be config.filepath. Okay, and this should be a reference, not the string itself. But let's continue. So because this can fail, this function returns the result type as well. So a string, it reads the file to a string, or it fails. So we need to handle the error. But now we are not going to be unwrapping here. We are going to make it very concise. So there's a question mark operator that makes it very easy for us to handle errors, and it's just like this. That's all. So let's remove this first of all. See, if you hover over here, you see result. This is currently result. But if we put the question mark type and hover over here, so we are expecting a string, but we could get an error. So what this does is, what this little guy does here is, it checks if we try to read the string and we encounter an error. It just returns the error. We don't have to type return like we did here, or match statements. It just propagates the error to the error arm straight up. Okay, so if we get what we're looking for, it stores it here. So because our function is returning a result, we need to wrap the final value inside the result, and our final value should be content, which is a string. So the error we have here is because we're trying to move out of a shared reference. So because this cannot be moved, we need to look at the value, the 5 paths. So this as reference paths. Okay, so now we have this sorted out. If we give it the 5 paths, we'll get the string or the content from the file. So let's try to test it out. We'll take this off. So let's create a variable, let content equal to read file. So what does this expect? It expects a config, a reference. So here, that works, config. So because this can also fail, we need to unwrap it or pass a value if there's an error. And we also do the same thing like we did before. We print to the standard error. What are we printing? An error. We put the placeholder and then call it out here. So you can see the error is a dynamic type. It's on the heap. Okay, so why we still have an error here, like we said before, is because unwrap or else, the else is not handled. It expects something to be returned. You're not returning anything. Okay, so let's put this here. We now have something that does not return actually. So let's print this out and see what we get. Oops, no, we're printing content. So let's see. If we say cargo 5 parts, as you can see, the error here says no such file or directory, because what we pass is not correct. So let's pass something that makes sense. Our file is sample. Let me confirm that. Sample.csv. Remember to put it the root of your code, the root folder sample.csv, and the column number should be 1. the column number should be 1. Okay. As you can see, we have the string read out exactly as it is. Okay, so this is now settled. If there's an error, it's going to return the error. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is to work on the string. That's the final check. So let's create a function that will do that. Okay, so let's call the function process file or process CSV. Let's call it process file. So this function is also going to handle error issues. So, but if it does not find an error, it's just going to print something to the standard output. Just print what we want. Okay, so it's not returning anything, and that means our success is just going to be nothing. It does something but does not return it back to us. So this is the unit type. It says nothing is returned, but something happens. Or if we get an error, let's have that as a static string. Okay, so let's just do this here as a final check. So at the end, it does this if everything works out. So the first thing is, what does this program take? It takes a file, right? It takes a file path and also a column number. Yes, so it takes a column number, and that comes from our config, right? Yes. Next thing it takes is the content, like a file. So content, what is content? Content is a reference to string. We are not passing the string itself, right? Because we have handled the file part here. Where is it? Here. So this is what we are returning, a string, but we are referencing it here, so it's not moved. So the first thing we want to do is get the column number. So say let's column equal, okay, to make this sound great, let's just say config. That's what we pass. Okay, so you would understand why I did that. Config dot column number, instead of saying let column equal column number dot column number. Okay, doesn't make sense. So now we have a column number here. The next thing we want to do is get content. So let's store all of these lines somewhere so we can work on them. Each of these, one line somewhere. So we say let's lines equal to content dot lines. So this goes over each of the lines. Let's hover over it. Returns an iterator over the lines of a string as string slices. So can see it's an iterator, so it goes here, 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 and puts them. Now that we have the lines, okay, what should we do? Let's try to access the first line based on the column that is provided. So we want to like have name or age or city or favorite language. So let's call that the headings. The headings. Let's try to access just this. So we say let headings be equal to content dot let headings be equals to lines dot next. So what we are doing here is we are iterating over we are moving the iterator to here, so it just returns the first part. So if we call next again, it returns the second, and so on. So we want to have just this only for now. So this okay, we need to make this mute. Okay, so this returns the first line here. Okay, so what should we do? We want to get the header, the one based on the column. So that's going to be the header, but this returns an option, so we need to handle that. So can it be unwrapped? Yes, it can be unwrapped. Okay, so you can see this reference to a string. So if it's not unwrapped, it could be an error. So let's see if you can do a match here. So we say let headings equal match. We'll try to get this. If we find something, let's call it H, and then we return that as the heading. So H is a reference to string. If nothing is found, we just want to return an error again. That's why we have this. So no headings or data. Don't know, but yes, this makes sense. So we've now handled this. So inside of these headings, this is what we have. So let's get one of it based on the column that the user would enter. Okay, but because we have handled most of the heavy duty here, we would not need to be checking anything. It's done here before it's passed to the caller. So what we now have to do, we have the headings. Let's look for the header. So let's header equal, well, let's just print our headings and see what we get. Okay, so we call process file here. So because process file is not returning anything, we would not need to do all of this or store any variable. We just check if if we call this, if we get an error when we call process file, so we have to pass what it needs. If we get an error, we'll just print the error. I think this works, okay. And then the placeholder should be the error. Oops, it should be E. So if we get an error, we should just print the error and then do exit the program there. So let's see what we get here by passing cargo run sample.csv1. So we are hoping what we get printed is just this. If we don't get that, that means something is wrong somewhere. Okay, we have name, age, city, favorite language. You see, that's what we want. So we can now go down again and then try to print just one that we need. So we say let header equal to, we are going to be splitting this by comma, and then get the position of the value based on the column. So we say headings, right, dot split the character we are splitting as a comma, dot end, we are trying to get the position. So you can say returns the nth element of the iterator. So this can also fail, can find something or nothing. So this should be the column. Okay, so because this can see option, so we want to handle if we do not find anything. So we're trying to match this. So this match is an expression. Whatever happens is put here. Okay, currently nothing is here, so we say something was found. So let's call it header again, H. So what we get back, that we wanted to put it here. So oops, you can see H is, header is now a reference to a string or a string slice. So if none is found, so let's look at what this returns. It returns option, yes, so we're handling the right thing. So if this nothing is found, that means there's an error. That means the user entered a column number that is higher than what we expect. So we should say something like an error. We should say something like an error that describes what is happening. So column number should be what? Should be, oh, it should not. Column number is greater than the available column number is greater than expected. Let me just stop here. So why do we have an error here? Okay, because there's no return. Yep. So we now have the header. So let's print let's print this again to be sure before proceeding, because something can go wrong. Let's be sure we are doing the right thing. So I want to see just name printed out. That's the header. So I hope this, yes, we have name printed out. So let's print the fourth one. So favorite language. Okay, then let's print something that is not supposed to be. Let's say 6. So error column number is greater than expected. So this should make sense to the user, I guess. Now that we have the header, yes, we should leave it here because we need it. So now we want to print the rest of the values on each row based on the column. So because if we entered column 1, we want to print this as well as just this. Okay, if we entered column 2, which is age, we want to print just their ages. So we would say for line in, we are looping because we want to go through all of all of the lines. Where is that? So our iterator here is currently here. So if we call lines, it should be starting from here. So for line in lines, let's see, we want to print, it's going to be a long statement. We want to print the line, each line, then we split by comma because all of them have commas, so that's the separator. After comma, we want to get the position of the value at column. Okay, let's see what is here. This option doesn't implement. Okay, let's just unwrap here, or unwrap or returns the content some value or a provided default. Okay, let's do unwrap or. So what's the default here? In case nothing is found, let's just do nil or not available, something like that. So this is going to be printed. So let's test this out. Again, we are going through each of the lines. Remember, our iterator is currently here because we called next on lines. So the iterator moved here. If we call next again, it moves to this. So because next was called once, we still have all of this to work with. So we now loop over all the values here in lines, and then for each of the value, for each of the line, we split it by the comma. That's why we have line dot split comma, okay, by comma. And then after splitting is also it's an iterator, returns an iterator over substrings of this string slice separated by characters matched by the pattern. So because we are splitting by comma, we have at least 24 Lagos Python in the pipeline. So all of them have indexes, so we want to pick based on the column. So if they are now positioned as this is the iterator goes here, goes here, goes here, goes here, but we want it to get a particular value based on the column number. So if the column number is 1, so the iterator just returns the first value to us, and then it wraps it in the sum here because this returns option, and then we unwrap it using unwrap. But what if we could not find anything at position 1? So we just replace it with not available, or we just unwrap it. This is up to you. Okay, it's up to you. But let's test that out by saying we want position favorite language, we want position 4, column 4. You can see we have Python, Rust, JavaScript, Go, Java. So if we want just the names, we say column 1. So at least Benjamin, Shoma up to the end. If we want the city is column 3, so the user, but 2 internally. That's why we did the minus thing here. Okay, so because I have worked on this before, I know this. But if it's your first time, you're just trying to solve it on your own, you might see this edge case when testing. Okay, so I tested it and noticed this is what I need to do, and I went back and added the error checks. Initially I just returned the value, so that's always normal for beginners. So now we have it working properly. So let's say we enter 6, it should return an error, you can see. So let's see how we can get the new. So let's remove this from age and see if the first age will be new. Then I'm not sure, but under age, that's column 2. Okay, it's empty. Okay, let's put a space there and see. Just want to know if oops. Okay, I just want to see. Oops, you went and picked Lagos. But where is that part? Unwrap, or if you are unable to unwrap it, let's say that's an error, then you're supposed to. Okay, let's test this out again. So 24. Unwrap all. I was able to test this, but okay, let me try the last column is column 4. Okay, so instead of Python, why am I not not getting. So this is actually okay. Let's see. So characters whatsoever is there works. Yes, so this is it now. Okay, because nothing is there, there's no comma, it replaces it with not available. So Alice does not have a favorite language. The next one is Rust. Okay, so yep, that was how I tested it. You can do whatever you want. So if you are starting the video, you could just try to solve it yourself. After watching the video, don't look at the video, just try to solve it yourself. If you understand all of these fundamental parts of Rust, if you have worked with them, so you could just try to do them yourself. So why this is done, why this is not done, and that's just everything. So yes, we have finally completed the whole program and it's working well. It's handling errors. We are ready to go, and maybe see you some other time when I am making the next video, which is obviously going to be another problem solved. So thank you so much for watching up to this point. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you soon. Bye for now.